Welcome back, everybody, once again to another episode of TJ Talks the News. Today is September 7th, 2021. It is a Tuesday, the day after Labor Day. Happy Labor Day, everybody. It's just, it's probably the one holiday that I could legitimately get behind. The celebration of the average worker. Celebration of our labor. But I think it's one that we don't take very seriously in this country. It's just an excuse to have a barbecue or whatever. Gosh, I wish I could remember the name of this movie. My wife and I watched it not that long ago. The movie isn't that old. I think it's a few years old. And it has Viggo Mortensen. Is that who it is? Is it Viggo Mortensen? No. Is it? Gosh, I don't know. I think it's him. But it's about like a father and his 4 or 5 children. I forget how many kids he has. And they've kind of just shed all modern luxuries, all modern comforts. And they live out kind of in the forest, and they live off of nature, and they hunt, and they do occasionally steal things from grocery stores. But it's kind of about the corruption of the modern world and trying to kind of get back to this maybe living more with nature type thing going on. How did I get talking about this? That's right. Yeah. So the family celebrates one holiday. I don't think they do birthdays or Christmas or anything. They celebrate one holiday, and it's Noam Chomsky Day. And when I heard that, I couldn't stop laughing for like 5 minutes straight. Now I'll say, Noam Chomsky is an interesting guy. I don't know if he's worthy of an entire holiday. But I liked the idea because at one point one of the kids is like, why can't we just celebrate Christmas like a normal family? And the dad, which honestly it sounds like something I would say, he's like, okay, that's an interesting perspective. If you can make a coherent argument as to why we should celebrate a fictional elf as opposed to a real life human being who fights for the average worker, then maybe you'll be able to change some minds around here. So go ahead and make your case. He's just like, on one hand, he's opening the child up to this idea of discourse and debate and how kind of communities come to establish things like traditions. But he's also, of course, using his power as the father and kind of mocking and belittling the child's point of view. But anyways, it was interesting, this idea of, the holidays that we do celebrate are often kind of meaningless and have just been corrupted by consumerism, and it's just, but this idea of celebrating real people, real accomplishments, I think is a I don't know. I hesitate to put to like celebrate a single individual. I don't know. I think that's just something that we should avoid. But celebrating values, celebrating historical events, that kind of stuff, I think is maybe okay. Scandal. This is Huffington Post, by the way, and the reason I'm doing this one is it's again one of the more popular news sites out there. It's actually kind of my introduction, I think, to online news. It's one of the first online news sites that I started going to many, many, many years ago. Mainly, I think, because my parents went to it, and this is when it had first started by Arianna Huffington. I see it kind of as a bit of a trash tabloid type news source now. It's arguably a lot better than some of the other crap out there, but it's not that much better. I will say once again, I like that it's not as cluttered as some of the other sites. They have this huge image and headline: scandal. Minnesota State Patrol purged records after the George Floyd protests. So of course, was this last summer? Gosh, it feels so long ago, but I think it was just summer of 2020. Gosh, was it? Maybe it was before then. I feel like it had to have been before then, because I know I talked about it in class. So, I don't know. Whatever. Uh, it happened. It happened during Trump's tenure. We'll say that. And of course, it's the video that I'm sure many of us have seen with the cop kneeling on the man's neck, and Floyd ends up dying as a result. As many people try to protest and try to get the cop to stop. Now it turns out that the state patrol, because of course after this happened, you knew that the lawsuits were coming. You knew that calls for reform were going to be coming. They of course could expect that there were going to be audits. So it seems like they purged their records. They um, got rid of, I'm sure, anything that, even if it wasn't like illegal, just anything that could lead to bad publicity, basically. Um, we really need to do something about the police state in this country, though. I live in a place where our local police department, every year we make the top five or whatever for like most number of police shootings, and uh, there's a long history in this state, or not in this city, of just corruption within law enforcement. Back in the 80s, we had this whole kind of satanic uh, ritual crisis type thing, panic, like the moral panic of the 80s. I don't know if you all remember that. With a lot of it revolved around like video games and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, and people thought that these new things were like corrupting our children. But apparently there was this. I need to read more about this because it seems like a really interesting chapter in my city's history, where like the DA and like went after this group of people for child pornography or pedophilia, but it also included like child sacrifice and satanic rituals or something. But then it turns out it was all fabricated, and it had something to do with, I think, maybe the DA going after like people he didn't like or something. I don't know. It's just our law enforcement here is really fucked up, and yeah, it's really bad. And I've experienced it firsthand where, I've watched a cop basically extort my friend um for money, saying like, if you don't hand over all that cash and that marijuana, then I'm gonna then you'll be going into juvie, kind of thing. You know what the really terrible thing was? So my buddy gives him the marijuana and all the money that he has. The cop still ends up charging him for possession. But he only ends up charging him for possession of like a gram. But isn't that just ugh? And then the cop, I assume, just took off with the like $300 too. I mean, he ripped my buddy off for like $600. And what are you supposed to do in that kind of situation? Um, Especially when you have things like qualified immunity that give police this kind of extra layer of protection, which I understand the rationale behind it, but it just we need to seriously rethink um, basically everything. We need to just start over from scratch. To be honest, it's time for that. Um, I think we'll probably see a civil war revolution. I think before we have any kind of serious reform. I think it's going to take that. I mean, we did it once before, and theoretically, we got reform with the 14th Amendment, right? The 14th Amendment basically rewrote the Constitution, but we haven't been very good at applying the 14th Amendment. Um, no, I was going to say, when it comes to the police problem, though, particularly police shootings, I don't think you solve that problem without solving the gun problem. I think these two issues are intimately connected. And you've seen police, law enforcement speak out about this. Most law enforcement, I believe, is in favor of strict gun control because, of course, having all these guns out there puts officers at risk, and it's probably why so many of them are trigger happy and why so many of them are trained specifically to pull out their gun and shoot to kill. Because when the person there, who may be, there may be many reasons why they're doing what they're doing, but when they potentially have a gun on them and can kill you, it just changes the entire situation. Now, of course, that's always a possibility. Even in places with strict gun control, there's always the possibility that the person has a gun. But just given the sheer number of guns in this country, it increases the odds that the person of interest does have the gun. So it just makes it just adds this kind of layer of nerves there where I imagine um, training police officers to keep their cool and while also making sure that they're safe. I just don't see it being possible with guns being so rampant. So I feel like you have to solve the gun thing before you can solve the police thing. On the other hand, I think it's Minnesota is now voting to just disband the police. I think I talked about this a couple episodes ago where this whole abolish the police, defund the police thing, and how most people who argue for it, they're not actually talking about abolishing the police. They want to reform the police. They want to shift funding away from that kind of traditional law enforcement more towards social services and whatnot. But and maybe I need to read a bit more about this, but I think they want to just disband the entire police force. That'll be interesting to see. I mean, believe it or not, you guys, society got we got along without police in the past. I'm not saying we did very well, but it's like a lot of people. I it might just how powerful traditions can be and how these kind of normative customs working against them can be so very impossible basically. So I teach this class and I don't use a traditional grading system. Like there's no A's, B's, C's, and there's no points or anything like that. It's basically an articulation of expectations. So a description of here are the behaviors and things that I would like you to do. And if you fail to do them, then you're going to be failing the class, kind of thing. Um, and to go along with it, because I think this type of grading system may come as a bit of a shock to students, I assigned this essay that goes into some of the arguments about why grades and traditional grading are bad. And the guy cites research from like back in the 40s, and it's amazing that we're still using these grading systems because they're just so very just contrary to the goals of the teacher and of education in general. I mean, I guess it depends because you could argue that education is really about kind of um, segregating people into their proper roles in society. So we're going to take you and we're going to put you in this blue collar job over here, and we're going to take you and we're going to put you in this white collar job, and you're going to be a worker and you're going to be a ruler, kind of thing. I think you can make that argument that that's what education is about, but for the most part, teachers don't see it that way, right? They really want to help students. They want to turn them into critical thinkers and stuff, and then they use something like grades, which is just so contrary to that. Um, Anyways, the guy lists like all this research about why grades are bad. They demotivate students. So as soon as you introduce any kind of reward or punishment into an activity, it makes that activity inherently less enjoyable. Um, I think YouTubers can probably speak to that, right? The ones that play video games when they're doing it for a job, it's not as fun anymore. It makes us worse at thinking, so it actually impacts our ability to think. My guess is it's just a distraction, kind of. But he shows that like students who received a grade versus students who received a grade and feedback versus students who received just feedback, that it was only the students who received just the feedback that performed well on this test, whereas the presence of the grade, even if they got feedback, the presence of the grade just made them perform worse. But also that grades aren't objective, they're not reliable, they're not valid. A grade doesn't actually measure what it purports to measure. Um, a teacher could grade your essay one day and then grade it something entirely different the next day. That mere fact alone, that you can get an A one day and then a C the next day, depending just on the teacher's emotional state, that should scare the shit out of all of us. And then you throw in things like bias, right? So my friends did this research project where they took this essay and the identical essay that they had hundreds of teachers read. The only thing they changed on the essay was the name. So you had some teachers would read an essay and it was by a student named John, and then you had some teachers read an essay and it was by a student named Jose. And then you had some teachers read an essay by a student named Shaniqua. So it was just the name, basically to see how a student's name might impact the way that a teacher reads the essay. What did they find? I'm sure everybody can guess what they found. That students with stereotypical white names performed better. Even though the essay is identical, just the presence of the name increased their score significantly. So when you hear stuff like that about how I think it's dangerous grades can be, given how much weight they can have in terms of a person's perception of themselves, in terms of their opportunities in life. I was prevented from graduating with honors because a teacher did not like me. It's that kind of shit, and it's not a big deal for me. I don't care that much about it. But hey, if I'm applying for a job and you got somebody graduating with honors and somebody not, I think it could impact my job opportunities. So I just sorry, this is my expertise, so I get very passionate about it. But so we read this essay and they reflect on it and everything. Still at the very end, like 90% of the class is like, yeah, even though grades not be the best, I still don't think we should get rid of them. What? So you know that this teacher might be grading you because your last name is Ramirez. You know that you get a worse grade because of that, but you still think we should keep them? Why? Why? And when I press students on it, it usually comes down to it's like tradition. They just can't imagine a world where that's not the case. And the essay that I assigned, he addresses that. He addresses that it's first of all, it's not a good argument, right? An argument based on tradition is we should do it because people in the past did it. That's not a good that's not a good argument. Um, but also, he does point out that many schools have made a transition to away from traditional grading systems. I think there are a lot of teachers, I think, who are scared about giving up that power, right? It's really about um, control. And I don't know. I was just like I had one student. He was like, I think we should keep him because like when I have the A there, like it makes me want to work harder. And I'm like, yeah, that's absolutely right. It's behavioral conditioning, right? We do the same thing with our pets. If we want them to sit, then we give them a treat when they sit, and if they don't sit, then we punish them. Kind of trying to get him to see, like, look, it's like they're treating you like an animal. Here, come get your little treat, and write this essay the way that I want you to write it, and I'll give you your little A+ treat, kind of thing. Which I know is a simplification, but I still want them to see. Okay, maybe we can get to some more news. Justice Department says it will protect abortion seekers in Texas. Now, I don't know how they plan on doing that exactly. We can click on the article, I suppose. My guess is maybe they're going to defend them in lawsuits. It says they're going to protect their access to the clinics. So maybe it's just about ensuring that women can actually get to the clinics. Um, it just says they'll provide support. Yeah, so it says the FACE Act, or Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, is a federal law enacted in 1994 that bans physically obstructing or using the threat of force to injure, intimidate, or interfere with a person seeking reproductive health services. So it's basically there will be a law enforcement presence to ensure that women can still enter these centers. But that doesn't stop. I mean, that's the thing is it's not really stopping the services. Of course, providers are going to shut down because they won't be able to deal with the lawsuits. But a woman can technically still go in and get an abortion. It's just what happens after that is now the problem. So I don't know if this is really going to do very much. It certainly signals that Biden and the White House are out to fight this thing. Um, it's so insane to me that this is. and I've already seen they're going to start trying to pass similar laws where it allows for this kind of vigilantism, um, with other issues as well, not just abortion. I think people are I think expecting maybe something similar with, is it Obergefell versus Hodges? I think was the court case that allowed for same-sex marriage. So we might see a kind of similar reversal with same-sex marriage, and all of a sudden, if you're a same-sex couple that's married, people are going to start suing you. Um, it really does. It's such a simple loophole, isn't it? I'm surprised they haven't tried this earlier, and I wonder if it's because there's something that might end up hurting them as a result. I'm trying to think of what it might be. But I mean, they're going to be dealing with all of their own COVID lawsuits here soon. I think some parents have already started suing the governor in Texas and stuff, and in Florida. Ted Cruz tells people to get a job. Can we just stop talking about Ted? Gosh, his beard is just hideous, isn't it? I hate. You know what? I like your beard, Mr. Cruz. I don't like you. I think you're terrible and belong in jail. But I'm not gonna talk mean about other people's physical appearances. It's one of my least favorite parts, I think, about Reddit, particularly like the politics subreddit and stuff. If there's like an article that the community doesn't like, often the top voted comments will be either mocking like the author or an image of like the image, whatever the image it is. If it's Trump, they'll call him fat or orange or whatever. It's just so immature and just so gross. It's so easy to dismantle and utterly decimate Republican arguments these days. You don't need to stoop that low. You don't need to go down to personal ad hominem attacks and start talking about physical appearances. It's easy enough. If you think the author's an asshole, well, then engage with the author's argument and point out why they're an asshole. Don't just call them an asshole and make fun of the way they look. DeSantis gets vital history lesson from Fauci over completely incorrect vaccine claim. That's such a great image. He looks just like an idiot, man. As I just went on, it's just so hard not to do, especially. And this is what they do, right? They choose these photos to elicit these responses in us. And so I see that face and I can't help but think, gosh, he looks like an idiot. But DeSantis I think he's like a Harvard grad. And that's just, I don't know. That's something that trips me out about a lot of these things is, like folks like Cruz and DeSantis, they're I say very intelligent. I don't know if you can really be very intelligent. I mean, it's like intelligence versus wisdom. They're intelligent, they're book smart, but they're not very wise in terms of how they utilize their intelligence. But it's just amazing to me that you can go through all of that, that you can be as well read as you are, that you can be as intelligent as you are, and still. And is it just narcissism? Is it just about power? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how. I guess I just having a conscience, like I don't know how they do it, man. Um, and I kind of have a local example of that. There's a doctor, a professor here at my college who is apparently talking about the vaccines having microchips in them and warning the students about getting the vaccines, which today, by the way, is the day that all students have to be vaccinated. They have to have their first shot. And it's already leading to just all kinds of anarchy on campus. Some teachers don't want to enforce this. They don't want to ask the students about their vaccine status. They think the vaccines have 5G chip. These are college professors. Again, I live in a conservative area, but man, how do you make it that far? Like at that point, the colleges should revoke their degrees, right? I mean, I feel like you have to, like, we have, like, there are clauses, like, you have to follow the ethics code and stuff like that. I feel like they're kind of breaking that code, so shouldn't they have their degrees revoked? Not that it will matter. In fact, not having a degree is probably a plus in the Republican Party these days. And it's just hilarious how they all look up to these like super educated, elite, Ivy League guys. Trump, the common man's man, like, dude, he lives in freaking Manhattan in a giant tower. Ex-Marine held without bond in deadly shooting of Florida family. Jill Biden heads back to classroom as a working first lady. I don't, I don't understand all the Jill Biden stuff or the Michelle Obama stuff. I don't know, just all the first lady, first man, eventually maybe, first gentleman, whatever. I don't know, whatever. We didn't elect them. I don't care about her. Who cares? Um, yeah, but hopefully they're vaccinated, and I mean her college. Hopefully they're vaccinated at the college. What's happening now? Mexico City replaced Christopher Columbus statue with one honoring indigenous women. Very cool. Um, See, like I don't know, like celebrating like individuals, like even celebrating like a group of women. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, it's nice that they're replacing the Christopher Columbus one, but why replace it with anything at all? Or why not make the monument to like an idea? I guess gender equality is the idea here. Maybe not gender equality. I guess it would be. I don't know. I don't know. We're we're celebrating that we killed a bunch of people. I don't know. The Wire star Michael K. Williams dies. Uh, I've never seen The Wire, and every time I tell people that, they just kind of. It's probably why I don't have any friends. They know I haven't watched The Wire, but I've tried to at the start of the pandemic. I was like, okay, it's probably time that I try to try to watch it, and I could just never really. I think I made it like 2 or 3 episodes in, and it just seemed kind of slow, and it seems kind of dated now. But honestly, I would probably give it another try, but I canceled Amazon, and it was only on Amazon Prime. I think you can get it through HBO, but I don't know. Dude, all these streaming services and stuff. I got Netflix. I don't care if they take everything off of Netflix, whatever. I'm not gonna get another streaming service. And people who do, shame on you. Shame on we were finally past that. And then you had to go and buy your 12 other streaming services. So now they realize, hey, we can just turn this into cable again. And some of them you pay for, and they still show ads. I don't even watch a whole lot of stuff, anyways. If I have anything on, it's usually just gonna be the news in the background. The Raiders, okay, I don't care about sports. Politics, yeah, whatever. Cuomo's an asshole. So I started watching, there's a 9/11 documentary on Netflix now. I started watching it last night. Um, I felt like, mainly I just couldn't find anything else to watch. And it was there, and I've heard that it's pretty good. So I put it on. It certainly provides a lot more context for kind of what was happening leading up to 9/11, our relationship with the Taliban, and stuff that we had done in Afghanistan that most Americans still don't know about. uh, so I think like one episode, 1.5 episodes into it maybe. So that not that far. I would recommend it though. I like that it's not just focusing on that day. That it seems to be providing a lot of context, a lot of history. There are probably better books that you can read, but if you're more of a visual person, then I would certainly recommend it based solely on what I've seen so far. 6-year-old girl dies on amusement park's haunted mine drop ride. How terrible! I love roller coasters and stuff, and I guess as I get older, I have less of a desire to be on them. And I think it's mainly like I know the odds are just minuscule that something would ever happen, but it's kind of like why risk it? I don't know. Am I just going to be living in fear? Is it really living in fear, or is it just being smart? No, I don't want to get on that giant thing that might kill me. That, sure, millions of people ride it every day. Only 5 have died. I don't want to be the next one. Um, I say that, but then I'll probably be on a roller coaster here by the year's end. We're supposed to go to Disneyland soon. No, we're not going anytime soon, man. Ain't no way I'm getting involved with that. But that's just what a terrible, terrible way to die. Let's see here. I am so fucking tired. This is under parenting. Parents like me passed their breaking point a long time ago. How will we ever return to normal? Why would you want to return to normal? This pandemic was supposed to be a turning point in our country's history, and to kind of go along with Trump as well. This was supposed to be the moment where we turned a page, where we realized all the shit that was wrong, and we started to fix it, and we started to solve it. And then we elected Biden. I don't dislike Biden that much. I think he would have made a fine president 50 years ago. I just I just we need somebody who's not afraid to make some waves. And Biden really does seem just afraid. Um Politically savvy, politically pragmatic. You could describe it as other things, but I just see it as being afraid. Just lacking the courage to do what's right because you're too worried about the fallout. Now, granted, he's not a king. He can't just do whatever the heck he wants. Well, he can, actually. Trump showed us that, right? You can do whatever the hell you want, and there's nothing that they can do about it. At least if you're a Republican. I feel like Democrats might actually hold their own to a certain standard. So maybe Biden is kind of limited on what he can do, but he can at least be out there every day, you know, fighting for those things. And I just feel like he's not really doing that. He's trying to take the safe middle road. And that's, I feel, how we ended up here in the first place. So, but yeah, I'm pretty fucking tired as a parent, especially with all the school stuff going on and just how poorly they seem to be handling all of the COVID precautions. Oh, let's see here. Californians returning home after fleeing wildfire now face bear break-ins. The delicate balance between humans and bears has been upset, Sergeant Simon Brown said. I thought this was pretty common. You know, I I don't know. You choose to settle somewhere where there's bears. I think it's something you're gonna have to face. Maybe you shouldn't be living where there are bears. Just like I live somewhere where it's really freaking hot. If I don't like the heat, I should probably not be living here. Um, so I don't know. I don't really, I don't really care about that. I hope nobody gets hurt. I hope that we can do something about these wildfires in our state. But yeah, at this point, I'm just kind of, I don't know. It's just one more problem that it's just gonna require a level of coordination and willpower that we just don't seem to have. Well, weird new animal species taking over at Chernobyl. Cool, man. Mutated lizards and bears and all kinds of cool stuff. Twitter critic Zeph, video game developer who hailed Texas anti-abortion law. I wonder what developer this is. Now, this is the kind of cancel culture that conservatives are often complaining about. Right? Somebody voices their opinion about a topic such as abortion, and as a result, they lose their job. Now, this isn't the government doing this. This is a company doing this, so it's not really the same. President of Tripwire Interactive. This it's a law that bans abortion for babies with a heartbeat. That's not even what the law does, first of all. Secondly, it's not a heartbeat, in case you didn't know. That the sound that you're hearing is actually a manufactured sound, and it's just electrical signals. It's not what we associate with a heartbeat, right? It's not the valve opening and closing in the heart, because the heart hasn't actually been developed yet. So, first of all, if you're going to tweet out something, know what the hell you're talking about. Secondly, honestly, this sounds pretty tame. So it's not like he's like, yay, let's go, and steal women's right to do with their bodies as they want. Like, it's not like, I mean, it's offensive just because it's stripping women of their human rights, but just in terms of, I don't know how to describe what I'm saying. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised, and I've never even heard of the games that he works on or the studio. I just feel like I just feel like we shouldn't punish people for their ideas. No matter what those ideas are, people shouldn't be punished for them. If it's a really bad idea, then what that person probably needs is more compassion in their lives, more empathy, more people caring about them, more people teaching them. And I know that sounds really naive, maybe really idealistic. But if the goal is to change the behavior, I don't think this does anything about it. I think it probably just makes it worse. At the same time, giving them a platform to speak from is not a good idea either. For purely, capitalist reasons, it's you want to distance yourself so it doesn't hurt your bottom line. But I don't know. It's just I guess it's just kind of more evidence of how reactionary we are, and I feel like we just need to kind of slow down and take some time to kind of really think through things and have lots of dialogue and yeah, you all are probably laughing at me now. I just feel like this is not the way forward here. Private companies, of course, can do whatever they want. But like people who celebrate this, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm always reminded of the guy, and maybe I need to learn more about it. But the black guy who goes around befriending the KKK members and helps them to kind of convert away from it. I always think of that guy, and I think about my students too. Many of the students that I could just laugh at them. I could just tell them they're wrong. I could censor them. I could tell them they can't write this way, or they, I could give them bad grades because it's a terrible argument. I'm sorry, it's not just because you're named Consuela. It's because it's a terrible argument. So I don't know. Like with my students, even if I don't make a whole lot of progress, it seems like opening it up to conversation and discussion is better than just shutting it down. So, people may be mad at me for saying that. Anyways, you guys, I think I have gone on for far too long once again. So that's going to be it from me for today, September 7th, 2020. I will see you all